When a lot of people each get in their own cars for a trip downtown, the result is a massive traffic jam. To avoid those jams, the North Central Texas Council of Governments has started a $1.25 million regional transportation study headed by COG Transportation Director John Rourke. At today's COG General Meeting, I asked Rourke what that study was going to do.
Of course, as we see more and more people driving, particularly, as you mentioned, one man, one car, we're bound to see more congestion, at least during peak periods of time. As this occurs, people will begin to evaluate their trip by automobile and also begin to evaluate a trip by public transportation, provided it is readily available to them.
With the traffic jams that we have now, especially in Dallas on Stemmons Freeway and Carpenter Freeway and Thornton Freeway, isn't it time now to offer the public a choice?
Oh, yes. Yes, very definitely. And this will be one of the major objectives of this study, is to see how soon this freedom of choice may be offered to people.
Transportation Director John Rourke warns that the transportation he foresees won't be as glamorous as the science fiction comic strip type, but if it's good enough to lure some of those drivers out of some of those cars and into the transportation, it will be invaluable. This is Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News.
Well, ever since President Nixon decided to go into Cambodia, the national news coverages have showed about how students are rebelling on campuses, striking, protesting the war in Vietnam, and President Nixon's decision to go into Cambodia. And we're trying to prove that the majority of American college students do support the president, be a Republican or a Democrat, and that the majority of American students are not trying to work against American government, but do believe in it and believe in the American system.
Do you believe that this will really accomplish anything?
Yes, sir, I do. First of all, we're trying right now, we're appealing to the citizens of Texas to help us raise money to get up to Washington, D.C. We have been promised to see the president in person and deliver the petitions to him, and then we're lobbying to United States senators and Texas congressmen so that they won't vote on the bill to cut off funds to Cambodia. And the reason why we think this is effective is because the liberal left has been lobbying to them for the past month, and that's been getting coverage, and a lot of senators believe this is the way the majority of young people feel.
Well, I think it's imperative that in the middle of this decade that we have some public transportation facility supplementing the existing bus systems that can be offered to the people.
Once upon a time, buses like this were considered the best way to get people from here to there. Then the affluent society came along and put a car in everybody's garage, and the result has been massive traffic jams on our freeways. Now officials are looking toward the bus, or some form of transportation, one more time to try to get all the cars off all the freeways. The North Central Texas Council of Governments has a public transportation study underway. I talked with John Rourke, COG's Director of Transportation, about the need for public transportation in North Texas.
I think urban growth is simply going to dictate that we provide some means of moving people and goods other than the private automobile.
What happens if we don't?
Well, no, this is hard to say. Of course, if you do nothing toward improving your highway facilities, this then will, in effect, force people into public transportation. So you have inputs from all different sources. Hopefully, public transportation facilities could be provided which would be attractive enough for people to voluntarily choose to use them.
Specifically, from the preliminary studies, what kind of transportation could we look for? Will it be motor, rail, air, or what?
Well, of course, the caution that I would offer is that we not look too much toward a glamorous form of transportation.
COG Director of Transportation John Rourke told Council of Governments members about that transportation study at COG's general meeting today in Arlington. The study is supposed to cost about $1.25 million, and they hope it will reverse the trend toward more vehicles on the highways carrying fewer people per car. This is Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News.
Suspects committing felonies be allowed to flee the scene without the use of firearms by police officers?
No, I'm not. But there is an area where perhaps the policy could be such that there could be restraint under certain conditions. This is what's being suggested by the various members of the commission and the people that we've talked with.
Could the high crime rate within the black and the Mexican-American community have any relationship on the use of firearms in those communities?
That's a law enforcement officer specialty and should be answered by them accurately, but my offhand opinion would be that could have some effect on it. But this is not always shared by other members of the commission.
The main problem here is we have many leaders in the Mexican-American community, but because of the high percentage in dropouts among Mexican-Americans, it's been difficult for these people to come out and express their views and their feelings. This is the reason why we're pushing so hard for education, because of the language barrier that exists from the very beginning. It's difficult for these children to ever finish school.
Do you think the school system will do something next fall that will help this situation?
If they follow my recommendation in listening to their citizens, they will.
Do you attribute most of the problems of dropout to the fact that students cannot speak Spanish in the lower grades, first, second, third grade, as they begin school?
Definitely.
We've just concluded the meeting with the staff from the Health, Education, and Welfare in Washington, D.C., in which they notified us that they would like to work with the Fort Worth Public Schools in developing programs for bilingual education. It seems that across the country that probably a group that has been most omitted in the educational program has been the Mexican American. As a result, they're trying to develop programs which will meet their needs. And as this group had surveyed the many cities in the United States who have bilingual programs, they narrowed it down to 5 and then finally down to 1 after several months of study. And this past Monday, they asked if they could talk with us and secure our cooperation. Today at 1 o'clock, we met with them and assured them of our complete cooperation and desire to help in such a program. Now, why Fort Worth was selected, they told us is because they thought that we had an outstanding program, and because we had been doing a little more, and because our program was flexible to meet their needs and the possibilities of new additions with innovative ideas.
Are you suggesting that those
I'd like this added in tomorrow's paper. We're from the Student Majority for Responsible Expression, and we're having a petition here to support the president on his move into Cambodia. Our organization just started last week, and we've already collected enough money to take out ads in both Dallas papers. And we'd like to put this in the news section if you could. And we also have a plea for contributions, and also if they need more petitions, they can write us at this address.
The why, it works out better over the long pull because we're able to keep pastors in pulpits this way. Otherwise, we would have an extreme shortage of ministers.
You've been involved in the delegation of funds for the church's reconciliation program. What areas do you feel are most important, or what were termed the most important areas?
The particular part I have played in this is at the point of administering the funds that have been used on a national basis, Gene. These funds have been used in several ghetto areas of the nation, particularly in Chicago and New York, New Orleans, and San Antonio, working with different minority groups. This has never been interpreted as a program handing money to any group. We have been able to put funds into areas, and these have been matched by local funds and have given the kind of self-help that enabled many impoverished groups to help themselves.